Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Going to talk a little Colorado football, Coach Prime, and some more rumors that just won't seem to die. Drake C. Toll on with us, Locked On Big 12, presented by BetUS. We'll talk about them in just a moment. Drake, Coach Prime to the NFL. It seems to pop up every week. We seem to do a video on it every single week. We've got rumors, reports that there is heavy interest in his side with the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland, then I said LA, and I butchered it 3 times. So now let's go with the Las Vegas
St. Louis Raiders.
Yeah, whatever team, whatever city they're in this year. Let's talk about that. Would he leave to go there if that's where the Suns were?
So the Raiders have actually come out since this report and said, we have no interest in Deion Sanders, it kind of blows my mind. He is an effective football coach. He is an NFL legend, and he's somebody that I do think could help turn a franchise around if given the opportunity. It's so odd to me they would immediately say, just at least interview the guy. Somebody should interview the guy. And Deion has talked about staying at Colorado and the opportunities there and leading young men and changing lives. And I told you 2 weeks ago, Deion is going to stay at Colorado. If an opportunity in the NFL opens up, he has voiced it would have to be perfect. And the only way it would be perfect is if he has some sort of clause or stipulation in his contract that the team he goes to drafts his son. And if I'm the Raiders, if I'm the Tennessee Titans, I don't want to blindly say without a combine, without a pro day, yes, fine, we'll take Shedeur Sanders as our franchise quarterback. Is he going to be an elite NFL quarterback? I do believe there's a very good case, but Deion has the brand to be able to set his number, to set his expectations, to set his contract. And the Raiders don't want any part of that, it sounds like. Did the Titans? I know he responded to their GM being fired. Would Deion fit in the NFL? Those are all very big questions, but he has long said that he has no interest in the NFL unless he gets to coach his sons. And I found it interesting, too. Chad Ochocinco said with Shannon Sharp, this is per thespun.com, that he said on Nightcap, don't go to Las Vegas unless there are major changes. It sounds good, Johnson said. It sounds real good, but I understand Prime knows best. Prime's been around the game of football for a very long time. You also know that if you do have interest in that head coaching job, you'll have a very short leash unless you have a quarterback. I don't think overall it'd be a great move for Deion because we've seen former players try to do it at the NFL level and get yanked in year one. That's not something that I want to risk when you've already turned around the entire economy in Boulder, Colorado.
There's also some news out this week about just Coach Prime looking forward to the challenge, the difference of not necessarily being a dad anymore, though I do think he is very much a father figure to a lot of his players. Not necessarily being a dad anymore, but just being able to be a coach. I wonder how much, now, maybe not enough to really want this because who wouldn't want a Shedeur or Travis on their team, but just being able to be a coach and not having to be a dad too, like how much do you think he's looking forward to that opportunity?
Really cool. He says, the quote was, I've been praying about this day. Now I could just be a coach and not be a dad. That's antithetical to a lot of what he said, but in a cool way, right? He's talked about if the opportunity was perfect, he would go coach his sons in the NFL. But that opportunity right now isn't perfect. And the fact that he's excited to be able to go coach at this level without Shedeur being there, without Shiloh being there, is really cool for Colorado fans. And really cool for college football. The quote continued per Sports Illustrated. It's an honor and a privilege to be standing before you, he said to the team. I can't explain how happy, how thoughtful, how thankful I am for this day. Has been praying, anticipating the day. You've got to understand, he says, it's an emotional day without those two knuckleheads. The first day coaching without his boys. A pleasure and an honor. You can be a coach, not a dad. I like that. I love that. That was the quote from Deion Sanders. Really neat that while we've all talked about this emergency scenario where he does bolt to the NFL because he gets that opportunity, that's very unlikely. And if we've learned anything, TJ, the guy that I once questioned, wondering, okay, can he back his word up? Can he actually win games? Can he really lead a program strong? Now he's stood up to everything he said. He's qualified every line that he's given that football program. Every line he's given the media, been very open, very honest. When he says something like that, it sounds very genuine. I don't believe he's blowing hot air up everybody's skirt. I think Deion Sanders is there to stay, again, unless there's that 4-5% emergency chance that the Titans call and say, fine, we'll take you, Shador, and Shiloh. And even then, he might have to really sit down and think about that, because that kind of commitment, that kind of risk is tough.
I'll get right back to chatting with Drake, but first I do want to tell you about our friends over at BetUS. Make sure you're using our code YouTube150 for a 150% sign-up bonus all the way through the NFL playoffs. We've got March Madness coming up here in a couple of months. Whatever you're betting on, make sure you're betting with BetUS. YouTube150 gets you 150% on your first bonus, 125% on your next two, all of that up to $2,000. Make sure BetUS is who you're betting with today. He's built something in Colorado, and that's what sticks out to me the most about what you're saying about what's happened here with Coach Prime and the Buffs. And they're on such an upward trajectory. We talked about it when we talked about the Alamo Bowl in a previous segment, but he's built something to where they are one of the brands in the Big 12. And when you're at a spot where you're potentially at the top of a conference, any conference, a major conference in America, you have some certain built-in advantages, whether they be recruiting, whether they be publicity, whether they be just people following your program, the money that's flowing into Boulder. There are some real serious advantages. And I don't want to minimize what Coach Prime would do, but I don't think anybody's bigger than the NFL, right? The NFL, the monster that it is right now, it's almost starting over, right? And can he rebuild the Titans? Can he rebuild the Raiders into something? I'm certainly not going to doubt him, but I do think that that's a little bit of the factor too. He has the machine up and rolling in Boulder and on an upward trajectory. I don't care that Travis and Shador are leaving. It's an upward trajectory, and they're going to be picked to win a lot of games next year too, and they're going to be picked to compete for that Big 12 crown. And competing for that Big 12 crown means that you are in the talks for the playoff yet again.
Yeah, Gerard Mayo to Antonio Pierce, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen examples of guys who trusted their old organizations, who trusted the fact that their status as an alumni in the NFL could help carry them as a head coach or give them a leash. They didn't have that. They got fired after 1 year apiece. And for Deion, if it's the Cowboys, that you're right, that risk is too much. You've already built in Boulder, and you could go coach the Cowboys for 2 seasons, be run out of town, and forever your status in that city will be marred. You're no longer Deion, Prime, the guy who came in and brought swagger to that organization. You're the failed coach, the popular alumni Ring of Honor guy who came in and was a dud as a head coach. Stupid decision by the organization. And from now on, you just don't get that same moniker. Or you are legitimately the savior of Colorado football. 2 winning seasons in the last 16. Which do you want? Which risk do you want? You've already made yourself you're already a household name in football, and you've got a great thing going at Colorado. Don't mess it up. And I think Deion knows that. Chad Ochocinco does. Chad Johnson wants him to know, hey, Deion, just stay. And maybe he had interest in the Raiders job because Vegas is great. Maybe they'd take his sons, but as long as there's no interest on the way back, Deion, he has an ego in a good way. Like that dude's, he's very open. Like he's Prime. That guy's got a nickname and wears sunglasses at the podium. He's got ego in a good way. And if the Raiders aren't going to match his expectations, he's Deion Sanders. He doesn't need them.
Do you have a bold take? Do you have an expectation for Colorado 2025?
Strictly dependent. I do think Deion's still there next year. If he's not, I'm very worried about the future of that program. Who steps up? Is it one of those assistants? Is it another former NFL legend? If Deion's in town, though, they're looking at another 9-win season. I do believe that based on how good. It wasn't just 2 guys that made up their roster this year. They had plenty of help defensively, especially if they're down the stretch in the second halves of games. I'm going to go with a 9-win season as the 8-9 win floor for Colorado with Deion next year.
And if they excel over that just a bit, we're, again, probably talking about them in the playoffs. So, Drake, where can people follow you for more Big 12 content?
Yeah, at LO Big 12 or at Drake C. Toll on Twitter and wherever you find your podcast with Locked On Big 12.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Appreciate Drake C. Toll for joining me. Locked On Big 12. Make sure you go check out his content. We'll link it all down in the description. Appreciate BetUS for their support as well. If you felt any type of way about this content, you loved it, hated it, couldn't stand it, or want more, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of college football addiction.